Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Good afternoon and welcome everybody from the Hot Rod Industry Alliance to our open meeting. We have a awesome panel for you guys today, and we'll keep the open meeting portion of this relatively short so that we can enjoy the majority of the panel discussion during the time. If I could introduce just very quickly, SEMA's had a pretty darn good month this month, in case anybody in the membership missed it. SEMA announced signing of a partnership with FIA for the North American FIA group. And FIA also joined SEMA on an international basis as well. And it's specifically related to ADAS testing and SEMA's efforts in vehicle safety, and really is a huge opportunity for the SEMA membership and the organization as a whole, and is frankly a milestone that's been accomplished. There's a lot more information coming relative to that relationship, but it definitely is a positive. The second update from the week was SEMA was present at the White House last week to witness the signing of the end of the EV mandate, which is a battle that has been going on for quite some time. So pretty damn good week for the organization as a whole. And I just thought the membership should know that if you've missed it. The last thing is, so far, an update relative to the SEMA reception. It is still tentatively planned to occur at the Westgate Hotel, and that's something that we're all excited about to get the gathering together. On behalf of all of our members and our select committee, I would like to express sincere appreciation to individuals that are leaving HRIA at the end of June, at least leaving their membership or service to the select committee, but they'll be called on to be at-large members on July 1st, so they're not going too far. But I wanted to recognize Danny Agosta as our immediate past chair that will be terming out. Mark Bowler, who has been instrumental in the feature vehicle program, as well as really being a catalyst for our re-engagement, if you will, with the entire builder community. And then Carl Schulman, who has been really tirelessly working on the education program. These are three individuals that I just want to recognize and thank on behalf of the entire membership and what they've brought to each and every one of us. And thank you. I'd also like to welcome Eric Henschel, Kel Bridges, and re-welcome Shelby Robeson as the newly elected members or re-elected members of the select committee. They're joining myself, Tim McCarthy, as chair, Jeff Grantmeyer from Borgeson as chair-elect. Jeff will be assuming the position July 1. Amy Fitzgerald from Cool Hand Customs, Chris Holmstrom from Chris Holmstrom's Concepts, David Page from Edelbrock, Don Young from Auto Custom Carpet. Also, I'm remiss, Joe Kubiak. I would like to thank Joe for his tireless efforts, as he will be terming out as well. Joe, I'm sorry, I did not mean to leave you off the list earlier, but Joe has done a great job relative to the awards program, the feature vehicle program, and frankly has done whatever it's taken to advance the strategy of HRIA. Kevin Ostie from V8 TV, Leonard Chrisman from Lyons Automobilia. I mentioned Shelby earlier, and then Doug Lane, who is our SEMA board liaison for Motor State Distributing. And last but certainly not least, our SEMA Council Director, who has really been a catalyst for HRIA and an unbelievable supporter, but Marcy Yanis. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeff Grantmeyer to go through what's been happening on the task force side.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, all. And Tim, a thank you to you for everything you've done for HRIA. And we look forward to you fighting for us at the board level as you move ahead to the board position.
Thank you, Jeff.
Quick updates on what we've got going on in HRIA. For events, we've got a couple great events coming up. First up is Education Days event, where we'll have education seminars running at the Good Guys Nationals, Good Guys Summit Racing Nationals in Columbus, Ohio. We also have a second Education Days event at the NSRA Street Rod Nationals in Louisville. That's a 2-day event, July 31st and August 1st for those seminars. We will also have in Louisville a happy hour and open meeting. Please come on by for that. It's a real cool, relaxed time. It's just a great networking event with a great bunch of people. And that'll be in room B101 on setup day, July 30th at 3 p.m. There'll be some beverages, some hors d'oeuvres, and just some good company and good conversation. Another happy hour event sponsored by HRIA is going to be at the Triple Crown of Rotting, September 5th. That's going to be at 4 p.m. at the Bowler Transmission booth. That's at the Triple Crown of Rotting in Nashville. So definitely check us out at these events. Put them in your calendar. If you're at any of these events, please stop by and support us and just say hi. We'd love to have you there. Quick review on membership. We're at 271 current member companies. We've had 43 new member companies join in fiscal year 25, and you see a good list of them there. Just take a moment and look through and see some of the new companies to join us. If you're not receiving any HRA news or updates, please reach out to ensure we have your correct contact information. We can only get the info to you if we're sending it to the right place. Also, all employees can be HRIA members and be included in these communications. Just email member@SEMA.org and request them to be added to your roster. That way, all of your employees will get all of the updates, all the news, all the information. An update on communications. Our communications committee does a fantastic job. We continue to do our member spotlights where we run spotlights on our HRIA member companies. If you would like to have your company featured, you can visit SEMA.org, navigate to the HRIA page, and there's an easy to find form at the bottom of the page. It's an online form, answer a couple questions, and you can just submit your spotlight right there. You need, I think, 4 or 5 photos and a few questions to answer, and SEMA will put it all together and get that pushed out on the SEMA social channels and HRIA social channels. If you have any newsworthy events or special milestones or accomplishments going on at your company and you'd like them featured, please feel free to reach out to our communications chair, Kevin Osty, to see what we can do to help you promote that on our social media pages and get the word out there for you. On that note as well with the social pages, be sure to like and follow all HRIA news on Facebook and Instagram pages. The more interaction we have on these pages, the more reach we're going to gain, and it's just going to help better represent our industry. Another big thing we got coming back is we're back. Season 2 has been approved for our Hammer Down podcast. We've been approved for a second full season. We'll be back to recording and producing these season 2 episodes very soon as we move into July here. In the meantime, take some time to head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, catch up on season 1, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any new episodes coming out on season 2. That's just a real quick, brief update. We want to get you over to the reason you're here. So again, thank you for attending today. I'm going to turn this over to Carl Schulman for another great HRIA education event, today's panel discussion. Carl, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Well, welcome valued members on our panel discussion on modern technology in the hot rod industry. I'm your host, Carl Schulman, the HRIA Education Director. I'm also General Manager of Garrett's Rod Shop in Columbus, Ohio. So last year, we discussed the difference between old school hot rod building versus new school, hence technology. So this year we wanted to elaborate where the future of hot rodding is heading. Okay, so think about this. In the last decade, the world of hot rod design and fabrication has seen a major shift towards industrial technology to create, wonderful works of art. Now, all those CNC machines, that's computer numerical control, and then computer assisted design, which is CAD, it's been prevalent in our industry for some time now. Think about like the billet wheels and billet parts that are on our cars. And think back to like Boyd Coddington in the 90s was, he was using machine tools to develop one-off wheels, then turn it into a production type of situation. You've got billet specialties, all the machine tool parts that we put on our builds, it's been with us for some time. But now what we're starting to see become real prevalent in our build shops, whether they be small shops or big, as them adopting CNC equipment. Okay, they're buying 3D printers, they're buying 3D scanners, and they're utilizing it daily, to produce these works of art. So some of the questions we want to find out today is what's driving that? Is it the cost of equipment and software is becoming more affordable, or perhaps the software and the processes don't take a master machinist or a long-term engineer, and it's finding that somebody with some mechanical abilities and the desire are learning how to use these equipment like a pro. So to find out from today, as I'm really excited here, we got three panelists that I'm really gracious that took the time today to discuss this very topic. Our panelists, they're leaders and pioneers in our industry when it comes to utilizing modern technology. Plus, I can say I've worked with a couple of them on some projects in our shop, and let me tell you, these guys are amazing. They come up from concept to reality and bring out these designs and make them functional works of art. So we're going to discuss this kind of stuff with them as well today for you viewers on, what kind of equipment are they using and how's it changed their business and what can it do for your business? So let's get started. In no particular order, Jeremy, I'd like to tell us a little bit about you and your company and how long you've been in business.
All right. Thanks, Carl. Thanks for having me today. Nice to be recognized with these group of guys here with me. But for those who don't know, my name is Jeremy Carlson. I'm in a little town in South Florida called Palm City, and name of the company is Avant-Garde Design. We've been in business now about 8 years. We started on more of the audio side and then moved into the interior world. So we primarily do just high-end interiors, and the rest of mods are the old cars that come in. We still are a design firm as well. We do some outsourcing for design for other people, stuff like that. But majority of our services is just for hot rods, I would say. So my background, I grew up in Kansas and moved to Florida in '97. And the first 25 years of my career started in the car audio world. And then I switched over about 8 years ago into the interior world. So
cool. An awesome shop. I've got to see it. It's amazing. All right, we're going to move down through time zones. Zach.
Hey, I'm Zach Ingram. We are based out of Knox, Indiana. I have kind of two businesses. One, we have the hot rod shop, which has been Z-Rods, which this year marks our 15th year in the industry. And then I have another company called Fiber Forge Composites, where we focus mainly on custom parts, custom machining. We have quite a few in-house CNC machines. We do a lot of 5-axis CNC routering, which is, we'll talk about more later, which creates a lot of the plugs and parts that we produce for other people within our industry. That business we established in 2019, even though I was doing it a little bit before that, but it's really taken off pretty fast as the industry has done so in the technology world of producing parts. So my background, I've always been in the hot rods. That's all I've ever done my whole life. I was pretty unique in getting to start actually in an aircraft restoration shop when I was really young, to entering into Wyoming Tech. I'm a Wyoming Tech grad in what I call the kind of golden years, and then went straight into drag racing. So I went through drag racing for the very first probably 11 years of my life, competing in NHRA, Top Fuel, dragsters, funny cars, not only working on the cars, but my main business was building the cars. And then later left to start Z-Rods.
Cool. That's incredible. Yeah. And then our third panelist, we're really excited to have here, Sean.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Sean Smith. I'm from San Diego, California. I run a creative agency specializing in the automotive industry in SEMA, custom aftermarket bespoke cars. I'm a consultant to small volume car companies, OEMs, and builders, all kind of big and small. I graduated from Art Center College of Design in 2004 from Pasadena. Upon that, I worked for some OEM companies, and then now I'm working for myself, working with various companies. So, like I said, I'm from San Diego, and it's just a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Great. So see, this is what I was saying. This is why I'm excited. We've got a group of guys here from diverse backgrounds in our industry, and I feel like is going to give us the information we really want to know. And so with that, here's some questions I feel that our audience are wanting to know. So tell us what made you want to invest into using technology into your business? Was it a particular project? Was it a lifelong goal? Have you always been a techie? Zach, let's start with you.
I'd say a lot of it for me had to deal with the efficiency. Going through starting as my career as building everything, as we'll say by hand, as a fabricator, and doing everything from your template work, your learning your craft, your metal shaping skills to the final product, which we do everything in house here, from build a car from scratch, which we do now in CAD actually. I could see everything in the efficiency. I could see where it was going to help our shop, and mainly for the younger generation. And a lot of that had to do with, I was bringing a different generation of guys in the shop, and I realized that these guys didn't have a lot of the, I'll call hands-on skill set coming through schools, especially nowadays. A lot of the schools don't even have an actual shop class, right? They're not, although I'm starting to see that come back into play in a lot of schools, at least in a rural area like ours, where, we're a population of 2,000 people here where I'm at. But it was the efficiency side. We were able to look at planning ahead of a build by creating it in CAD first, and along with 3D scanning, we're able to place parts that we would normally test fit or make mock-up parts in locations that now we're able to push a lot of that time to the side, base it more with the engineers, and go through an engineering process first. And then once we have that kind of laid out, what's nice is to then bring the fabricators in. We look through this as a group and having a meeting on, okay, hey, this is where we're going to place this underneath the dash. We're going to route the exhaust this manner underneath the car through this cross member.
Right.
It gives them a roadmap of how they're going to apply that into the fabrication shop now. And it cuts down a lot of the questions. And a lot of a lot of guys are great fabricators, but they don't have that, I'll say, that creative direction. So this lays that out for them so they know what the next step is. And with having that, I've seen the efficiency pick up in the shop.
Sure. You saw a need. That's what it was. You saw a need in our industry, and definitely have capitalized on that. Sean, what's your view on this?
In terms of like why am I investing in technology and company? I go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I know a little bit about you. You definitely, this has been your passion your entire life,
Sure.
is design and
Mhm.
how's it like that? So,
I think in terms of why I'm embracing technology at this point in my career, I think there's two big reasons. I think one is from a functional standpoint and from a communicating with the customer standpoint, whether it's a customer that's doing a build or we're developing a part for a brand or a company. And I think the other one for me is I got to the point where I wanted more creative control over what I was designing. I come from the automotive OEM world where clay modelers, which were the people that translated 2D sketches, 2D to 3D before, and they still do that in the OEM world. You know, we would all be under the same office. So I'd sketch something, give it to a clay modeler that afternoon, and by tomorrow they'd have it hashed out. We'd lay it up for a mold the next day. Nowadays, I will say it's hard to do that because I work from all different kind of people, all different aspects across the world. So I would do a drawing and I would send it to the builder. They would interpret it differently, and the customer would be frustrated. The end client would be frustrated. The company, just wasn't turning out. But now I have the ability to do a drawing, use somebody from my team, get it into CAD, communicate what we're doing. There's going to be changes here and there, but I think the translation process from 2D to 3D, from initial ideation to final production in 3D, is a lot smoother. Everybody involved knows what they're getting, and you know, it's like Zachary said, even the fabricators have a better plan too of where to take it and where to go. So I think where things get the most frustrating for a lot of people is lack of communication. I think this new process eliminates that.
right. A picture says 1,000 words, you know, and
3D file does 1,000,000.
you're right.
So, right. Yeah.
And not everybody can see in 3D. That's for sure. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Jeremy, so same situation for you, or
Yeah, kind of what Zach touched on and what Sean touched on really is coming from my background in car audio. I was like probably the first one in car audio world to have a CNC router 26 years ago. So, but I was always in 2D. You know, I was everything was drawn in 2D, and even I was drawing in 2Ds in my head. I was seeing layers, like what I needed to stack up to back then bondo between two hard points to get, you know, a fillet or chamfer or whatever it would be. But as I grew and as I started Avant-Garde, bringing new people in, kind of like Zach said, is that sometimes they don't understand what you're looking for. You know, they don't see the creative side of it. So you could just show them a 2D model with 5 different layers, but in your head you're seeing 5 different points you're stretching between, and so they get really confused. So we moved really into the 2D world into the 3D world, a necessity to bring, as we grew, to bring my my new employees or my younger employees, and like Sean said, so everybody can see it, not just one person, you know, so everybody can see what you're thinking in your head, because you know, as you grow, you can't do everything yourself, obviously. So you're trying to come up with ways you can hand projects off or have somebody else do part of it. Well, if they're not on the same page of you, the end result's not going to happen. So, you know, it really started out of necessity as having to move forward and hire more people and let them be on the same page as you were. So that's where we switched from 2D into 3D. And then from there, which we'll get into, I'm sure, we started machining the parts in 3D, but then we knew there was a bigger, you know, better way to do things. And that's what we started evolving into, you know, 3D printers to start with, and then scanners, and then bigger printers, and you know how it goes. So I'm sure we'll get into that in a minute, but it was out of a necessity in the beginning how we really got started with technology. And to this day, it's changed my business plan, especially in the last 2 years. Carl, you know, I've been to your shop a couple of times, but I've started this business plan now where I fly out to the builders, whether it be Zach's shop or whoever shop it is, when the car is about to go into paint and body. You know, all the metal parts are hung where they need to be, and everything's in the car that we need. I fly out and, you know, I 3D scan the car and bring that data back with me, and that's our blueprint for us designers to start with. And so that has changed our business plan dramatically with technology. And so it's kind of evolved from changing that 2D into 3D, and then be able to capture that data from somewhere in the country and bring it back here and work on it. So,
right. And I think, you guys sound like we're all on the same page of this, and the whole thing of communication. And for those of you watching, shop owners, they're probably, this would help cure any frustration when you're dealing with a customer and you want to try to get your design across to them. And then if they can see it before it happens, it checks it off, and then they know where everything's heading. And that's a big frustration we've heard out through every shop, just the communication level. But real quick, you guys, you got to admit, it's neat, right? You love doing this because it's cool for sure.
It's a great time to be alive right now with technology. I tell you that. So
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Like I said, your guys' work's amazing, and it reflects 100%. So the next thing I thought, what our audience might really, want to get out of this, and they're thinking about, yes, I want to take the leap and get into technology to do our custom builds. For you guys, what's it going to take to get into this technology? And, of course, keep in mind, what kind of financial investment would it take? Sean, do you want to go, or Jeremy, or whoever? Just jump
Yeah,
in.
I can start. I think it's going to take two different types of investments. I think it's obviously going to take a financial investment, and that kind of depends on what kind of software. I think number one, you're going to be using. I think what's important to realize for a lot of these people and to get an education on is there's lots of different softwares and CAD programs to start the initial work in. But just like a fork, a knife, and a spoon are all for eating, but they do different things. These CAD programs, they're all different as well. And so different programs should be used for different applications. And that's the hardest thing I have a hard time conveying to builders right now, is just because you have one license of software doesn't mean you can do other things. One might be good for machining parts, but the other one might not be good for Class A servicing, which is something that you needed, like a NERBS program, which I'll get into that later. And I also think, you can invest on other things like the scanning and there's a lot of buzz going on with that new machine right now, the automated, the G15, the G15 automated things like that are coming up into our horizon. But I think the most important thing is the shop has to invest the patience and the willingness to try to do something different with different people. And that's a big thing that I see with a lot of we're trying to do new things. And the thing with this industry is we kind of have we're on a small level, but we play on a big stage. But so we do big things, but a lot of guys aren't willing to or they're scared because they don't want to invest in the new process. So I think they're going to have to take a leap of faith in hiring the right new people and investing in the right new thing to see a change. So that's the biggest thing is, yes, you can go out and get all the CAD software you want. You can get that machine, you can get that scanning equipment. If you're not going to really implement it with the new workflow and work process, it's kind of all for nothing. So that is the biggest thing in my opinion.
And then with software, like Jeremy, it's not cheap, right? It takes a lot of money to purchase these.
It's not cheap, and it can be on a cheaper scale. It depends where you start out, what direction you want to go in, of course. But I think Sean really said it. You have to have the right mindset to start with. We have people tell us all the time, "Oh my God, it must be so easy to do what you do. You have all those machines, or you have all those programs." But like Sean said, anybody can go out and buy machines, or anybody can buy all the programs, but if you don't know the recipe to put it all together to make it all work, then you've wasted your money, right? So I think, like Sean said as well about investing, it's definitely an investment that you need to have with an employee and with the machinery, right? And the employee is probably first and foremost, because you're going to hire an employee that maybe is already fluid in one program that you don't have. So you probably need to start with a good employee and then find out what programs he needs to move forward with. But with technology, it kind of turns what we do on all aspects of the build more into a universal language. Sean and I had a conversation the other night. We talked for an hour or so the other night, and it's one thing for Sean to be able to take a piece of paper and pencil or whatever and email me over a rendering, right? Well, it's another thing when Sean can take that and turn it into some kind of 3D surface that I can spin around and actually see depth, and I can see different forms of highlights and lowlights that in his head, he knew what he was looking for, but with that 2D piece of paper, I didn't know what he was really looking for. So it kind of really turns it into a universal language, because it probably really starts with Sean, right, with the design. And then if he can turn any kind of surface, and then, it'd probably go to Zach, and he's going to do the body, but now he's going to take Sean's design that he's going to give him as a digital form. And he already knows exactly what Sean's looking for depth in these panels. And, he can turn that into molds from his CAD data. And then at the very end, I can take what Sean started with and Zach went with, and we bring in the interior, and we bring all those scans together, and then we can create an interior that flows with the rest of it. But it all started with Sean, but it started in a universal language, especially with technology that actually gives us a digital file to look at instead of just a piece of paper. So I think everybody kind of needs to be on the same page as, like, yes, you can buy really cheap CAD programs, or you can buy these programs, SketchUp and a couple other things, but it's probably not going to talk to the programs that we're using. So you probably need to do your homework and your research ahead of time.
And you're right. Like, you can get Fusion and learn it, and it's relatively inexpensive, but there again, you're limited. So I think of Zach, like your shop, you've got a few machines.
Yeah, yeah, and it's taken a little bit, but it didn't take long to see where the investment would pay off. It's I'm more, I'll say, go back years, more of a old school pattern maker, modeler, right? And it didn't take me long from the first time, I make an injector hat for a top fuel car, and you're patterning that, and it's and doing it manually, old school. It just takes a lot of time versus seeing the first one that was developed in CAD and given me in a 3D print, and then given to me the mold that way. It didn't take me long to see, hey, this is a lot better than standing there for hours modeling clay or a high density foam. Both of them touched on, and I think we all three will always kind of touch on the same common stuff, right? But for me, I think the biggest investment, which is honestly one of the hardest ones, was in the employee side, the operator side. Mm-hmm. A lot of these machines and a lot of this technology, I know what I want from them, but it doesn't necessarily know that I don't know or have the know-how to operate them all. So the worst thing you can do is buy a piece of equipment that the job it's supposed to do, but you can't operate that piece of equipment. Now you became hostage of that piece of equipment in your shop. So the employee base for me was probably one of the biggest investments, and probably one of the most important, is being able to find somebody that, like Jeremy talked about a little bit ago, is just being able to talk that common language and understand each other too, especially when you're talking to a design artist, someone like Sean, and you're conveying, ideas back and forth. His sketch is very valuable, in having that very first sketch as that very first image to make sure everybody's on the same page. But then when you take it a step further and it goes into the 3D space, and you draw that and it's done at scaling, and then passed back, we're able to work with that in our shop. And it's not only just the parts, right, that we're talking about that we create, or for our own hot rods, or another part of FiberForge is primarily building parts for other companies. We do a lot in the hot rod world that way, but I've also done stuff for big companies outside of our hot rod world. And so being able to communicate with them back and forth, whether that company is in Ohio or in Florida or San Diego, it's made it possible that we can all, from different parts of the country, come together to build one part, right?
Right.
But yeah, for me, the biggest investment was the employee base and taking the time, because right now I've got 4 engineers that draw all day that are feeding one operator, and that operator is busy all day long, which is great. It's also keeping those engineers busy, so they have stuff to draw all day. Sure. But having the good guys, good employees, as we all know, that's the toughest part, and but also the most important part.
Right. And I want to touch back on this, because it's going to be the next segment about skill set. But I know, and we're all gentlemen here, we don't talk about money. But okay, so software, I'm going to go out and buy a $5,000 package. Is that pretty good? Yes, no, that's good to get me started.
For me, we started like a lot of people do. We did start with Fusion, right? And we have a lot of Fusion seats still operating. And we've tested it in a lot of realms. And design side, is it robust? Yes. Is it as robust as some other programs, especially surfacing? No. We've been playing around with Alias, which I don't know. I think Sean, maybe you use Alias or
yeah, I do.
and
yeah.
obviously for surfacing and doing Class A surfacing and drawing parts, I mean, I've found nothing like it, right? But then we do mechanical stuff, like if we're going to draw and design a front engine drive for, let's say, which we are, 427 camera engine we're doing right now, we've maybe leaned more towards going to SolidWorks on that side.
Yeah.
But I think, obviously we spent a lot more than $5,000 on software.
Sure. But to get started though, like
correct.
Some of us, if we're just going to get out there, would you say if I could invest 5 to 10 grand, that's going to put me in a decent software package to at least touch into the technology?
We love Fusion here. Even my guys who've crossed over from who do SolidWorks, they do still like Fusion. I have had guys that my operator, he machined for another company in Detroit Speed for 12 years, and they only use Mastercam. He came here and he hasn't found a limitation of the cam side of Fusion yet. So we've been able to run our 5-axis stuff through that very fluently. So I do think that's a great place for people to start, especially young guys. If they come out, they have a lot of trial packages. Some of the people in college, you can get some of this stuff for free too to learn on. But for me, like I said, a great beginner was Fusion. If they're just starting to get into it, and you can pick up a seat, for probably, depending extensions, for $2,500 to $3,500.
And then Sean, do you just download the Google SketchUp? Is that how you get all those?
Yeah, no.
I mean, or would it work if there's somebody out there who's like, man, I want to draw just like Sean, but I don't have the business started up to that point. Where would you tell them to start?
If you mean a designer starting out?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I would tell them to learn how to draw first.
But
if you don't want to but going back to my workflow, I think currently right now, I use like Adobe stuff for 2D applications. But I think for what we're talking about right now, the one main program I use is Alias. Like I said, Alias is a NURBS-based program. What NURBS is non-uniform rational splines. And that is used for creating all the organic shapes. So when you look at a car and you go out in a parking lot and you look at a brand new car and you look at the hood and you look at the fender and you look at the quarter panel, and they have these nice flowing shapes transitioned into each other. Those are all 99% created in Alias.
Right.
So I think I stress using the right program for the right application. Interiors, you can use Fusion, you can use SolidWorks. A lot of people use Alias. A lot of OEM companies use Alias. But for sheet metal shapes and surfacing and body CAD programs, you can use Alias or Rhino. Price on Alias is a minimum. It's 13 grand a year. For a bigger shop and more seats, it could be anywhere from 40 to 80 grand a year. And then if you're an OEM company, you can get into the millions, of course. I think I spent around 6 grand for a half a year's license with Alias. So we could get Alias is definitely on the higher end of things, but I think when you look at a lot of builders, like, okay, let's talk about one builder in particular that uses Alias almost exclusively is Ring Brothers. The reason why they do that is because they do all their bodies one-off in carbon fiber. The Valkyrie Camaro and the Super Truck and the new Aston Martin that they're going to debut in a month or at the end of the summer with at Quail, that is all done in Alias with OEM style surfacing. I think that's one of the things that I'd like a lot of builders to embrace. And I think it's important because right now we're at a huge transition where a lot of builders aren't just doing one-off cars, but they're getting into the space of being small volume manufacturers and doing 10 cars a month, 20 cars a month. Maybe they have a Chevelle series project that they want to sell more quantities of. And I think using these CAD programs allows them to be a small volume manufacturer, not just a bespoke builder.
Right, right. And Jeremy, you're kind of the influence why we bought a 3D scanner. And so your advice, or for me, what would you tell? Like, if you're going to go buy a scanner, do I buy that $2,000 one at the Micro Center, or do I buy the $80,000 scanner? What's your advice?
If you would ask me that a year and a half or so ago, I would have been like, just go straight to a CRIAform. I run a CRIAform scanner. I have for 6 years now. We love it. I think Zach, you're on.
I'm on RTech.
RTech, yeah.
Yeah.
But with the recent, I just got back from a 3D printing show in Detroit a couple weeks ago, a month or so ago, and there was 3 or 4 scanning program or scanners there, manufacturers, and there are some scanners out now at a reasonable price that will do almost what my CRIAform will do. Maybe its limitations are large scale, like maybe it won't do such a great job of stitching all like maybe 5 or 10 scans together like a whole outside of a car. But if you're talking about the size of a quarter panel or the interior of a car, there's some of these less expensive scanners that are out now that do a heck of a job. For me and my company, we really like to push technology, obviously, and the best, like we're going to go out, we're not going to go spend our money on something we think is going to work. We spend our money on what we know is going to work. And so we did a lot of research to buy our CRIAform scanner. And it's one thing to, like I said, anybody can buy a scanner, but then to learn to use it is another. And then the main reason we bought the CRIAform scanner is because of the post-processing program that comes with the CRIAform scanner into VX Elements or VX Model, which allows you to take that scan and do something with it. Without having a program like that, these guys can tell you a scan is basically like an onion peel. There's no substance to it. It's just a visual. So without the right program to take and turn some of those scans into surfaces or to planes, you might as well use a digital camera and taking a picture. So it's all about what you start with. But we started with a CRIAform, and we pay a little bit more money. I think we had like $42,000 in our scanner. And it's something that I would not change if I had to do it all over again today. So
right. And so I want to go back to Zach real quick before the next question, because he's kind of a post-processor guy. You've got 5-axis machines. Do you tell us up and coming shop to go get that, or what's a lower range investment that would help them get into using CNC?
Honestly, I think probably one of the most valuable tools in our shop is a 3D printer. I would probably tend to tell most people to go that route first, because not only can you produce some end-use parts from it, it allows you to make a quick and inexpensive prototype to some of the parts that are designed or drawn. Like right now we're working with Rad Rides on a project and developed a brake booster. He's got a brake booster, but we developed a very compact unit to hold that for under dash mounting that can be, work in multiple vehicles. And if it wasn't for 3D printing every part of that first, we would have a lot of money in machining to find out that, hey, we need, a 16th here or an 1/8 inch here, or this angle is wrong or whichever. So I would advise first for shops to look at into 3D printing, especially since they've become so cost effective now. I mean, you can pretty much purchase a pretty nice one. I mean, we have just like Jeremy, we have very large 3D printers, but then here now lately we've Bamboo Lab. I mean, it's hard to beat that printer. We run the living crap out of those things. So that would be my first advice on that before pulling the big trigger of, hey, I'm going to go buy $100,000 CNC machine to start spitting out.
It's more. It's not just the machine, the tooling, the infrastructure, the electricity, everything that goes,
right.
and the upkeep,
right,
and the programmer.
Yes, and a programmer. And yeah, absolutely. It's
and the programmer, and that really brings up the next topic, guys. If you don't mind, I want to ask you this.
Hey, Carl, without interrupting, can I touch on what Zach said a little bit?
Yeah.
I have to agree with him 100%. You know, we have a 5x12 Andrew CNC router, and I have a Big Rep 1, which 3D printer that prints about 40 inches by 40 inches by 40 inches. I think it's a meter cube. And then we have a plethora of Bamboo Labs printers as well, and some resin printers. And I would have to agree with Zach 100%. As we've evolved, we use our CNC router less and less over time. And now we're using our Big Rep 1, which is our big format 3D printer, less and less over time because of new technologies and new printers like the Bamboo Labs. We find it more efficient to, if we need something bigger built than the machine will do, to slice it. And, you know, we put carbon pins in or wood pins in and glue it together and body work a little bit. But it's so much more efficient to have something as fast as a Bamboo that can get you something from point A to B so quick, instead of having to have somebody model it and then, you know, then try to program the machining and then try to figure out how to machine the backside of it. The 3D printing side of it is so fast. And like Zach said, we use it so much for testing and proof of concept before we print our final parts that 100% my suggestion would be to start with a 3D printer over anything else at this point.
Right. So it definitely sounds, it's affordable. Shops that are serious can definitely adapt technology with no problem. And then, so you guys brought this up right off the bat, which is about the skill set. And Sean, you mentioned, you know, having engineers working for you, and Zach as well. You say this, invest in your employees, right? Or do you just say, let's learn it and hit the ground running because it's easy to learn? Or what would you suggest to these shops?
Are you talking to me? Yeah, I'll start that off.
Go ahead.
I would recommend, to be honest with you, it depends on what your workflow is or your workload personally and what your needs are. I personally would take on using outsourcing people at the beginning. And the reason why I say that is you could use different modelers for different, you could use a poly modeler for this, or you might want to use a solid modeler for that, or you can use a NURBS-based modeler, you know, so you're using different people until you kind of figure out what your needs and strengths are. I mean, are you going to be doing, like I said, Class A panels? Or are you going to be doing B-side mounting engineering things? You don't know. So it depends on the shop. But overall, I would say in the beginning, you might want to start just reaching out and working with different types of contractors and freelancers. And then if your workload increases and you think that's the direction, and hopefully it is, then you might want to hire full-time within there. I do think there's different levels of modelers and engineers, just like everything else. I do think people need to get used to the idea of spending more money for higher-end, more robust engineers and modelers. I've had a lot of shops give me pushback talking about, this guy wants $200 an hour. Yeah, he's got $200 an hour. He's also worked for Aston Martin for 30 years. So with that experience, it's a little bit more robust. So it's like anything else. I think a lot of people think just because it's done on the computer that you hit the easy button and we're just hiring people to hit the easy button. And that's pretty far from the case. It's not easy. It's more efficient, smarter, but it's not necessarily easy. So I think you're going to have to come in with a lot of different skill sets and people to just accommodate whatever need you have. Yeah.
Great. Zach, so with your diverse background, do you think that alone helps anyone out there to say, you know what, I can do this. I can learn something new. I can learn the software, and with a lot of time invested in, you know, the education behind it, is it possible to get into this?
Absolutely. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably one of the most computer illiterate guys you really know, and was way before I started this. And what I figured out I had to learn first is how to talk the language. And so I really tried to bury myself into the whole process of how guys like Sean have developed what they have, to draw and do what they have, to pass it off to somebody like Jeremy and make an interior in a car, or start drawing that interior and he doesn't even have the car in the house yet, right? So that was kind of my first approach, was trying to learn that. And then the next thing was just trying to just figure out how to implement it back into the shop, and knowing what direction to go before going off on the route and spending money on softwares or equipment that could be detriment to the business if you didn't know how to put it to work right away to make an income off of it. So to touch off what Sean said is, yeah, I started working with people and outsourcing stuff right off the bat to start learning the processes, and we still do. I mean, even to this day, with as many guys as we have working in the shop, we probably still average, I bet, at 80 to 100 hours a month with different design guys. We work a lot with Gary Regal and a gentleman, Kevin Grant, as well. And they're phenomenal guys, and kind of like Sean, Kevin Grant, he's a Class A surfacer. And that was, our introduction in Alias, for example, and seeing what that software is capable of and blown away by it, right? So that was a great way for me to start implementing it into the shop, was getting on board with the right people. And luckily, people knowing what I do, those people were suggested to me by Mike and Jim Reen, for example, because we've worked with them and made some parts for Mike and Jim. So yeah, kind of a lot of, I agree with a lot of what Sean just said, and that was that's how we kind of started with our with our business.
And I think my story is a little bit different. Being a small company when we first started, not too many employees, coming from the 2D world into the 3D world, I had to learn a program. So I picked Fusion because of the capabilities. Like Zach said, you can do it, start soup to nuts, right? You can design it, sketch it, model, and machine it from the same program. So we decided to start with that. And that's kind of where I stuck from since. But man, we definitely pushed the limits of Fusion when it comes to the surfacing side sometimes, just because it's not really a surfacing program. But for what we do in our industry, or our side of the industry, we're not looking for always those Class A surfaces, only because a piece of 80 grit sandpaper and we'll fix some things that before we wrap in leather,
Sure.
So
right.
we're not looking at the same type of surfaces. But like I said, starting when we were small, I taught myself Fusion. I'm YouTube trained on Fusion. One of the things I did in Fusion was I went through every menu in the sketch field first, and I YouTubed every feature of the sketches. And I went to the model and I YouTubed every feature, because I knew if I didn't know that what each feature did, I would never use it. So I learned every feature of the program first, and then I started drawing. And then I taught my employees, and then I have other employees I've hired just to do CAD in-house or to do the modeling. But we're kind of, myself and David and a couple other guys, we can draw and we can fab, we can do it all, right? Yeah. But I've learned as my company's grown that it's not so efficient, right? So as of in the last year or two, I've learned to outsource designers, right? I have 2 designers that work 1099 for me that, it's easier. They have their own program. One of them works in SolidWorks, one of them works in Alias. I don't have to own either one of those programs. They own it. They're able to give me a model in the end as a step file that it's a universal language that all the programs kind of speak. And it has made much more sense for our company to go that route. It's kind of like, we talk about technology. I call it my best friend, but everybody talks about Chat GPT these days, right? So I use Chat 400 times a day probably. But I watched a YouTube video the other day, and it was a prominent doctor out of Boston, and it was talking about using, Chat in being a doctor. And he said, if your doctor, wherever your doctor is not using a program like Chat or something like that, you need to find a new doctor. Basically meaning you can have your doctor you've gone to for 30 years, right? And he knows everything he knows. He's learned in college for 30 years. Or you can open a program and open the doors to the world, what they know, right? And so it's no different than what we do. We just go out and find the best people. And then, we just utilize their talents, and we can make it into part of our recipe and turn out projects that way.
And make it happen. Okay, so we're almost done here, guys. And I just real quick question. You can do a couple quick blurt out. Give us a glimpse in the future. What technology are we going to see coming up next in the hot rod industry? Zach.
I think we touched a little bit on all of it. It's at least what we're experiencing now isn't, we all set out to build these really high-end, beautiful, nice cars, right? And and sometimes function gets pushed to the side a little bit. What we're seeing now is honestly full scratch building cars from data first. So we don't even have a car in house right now. And I'm getting ready. We're in the middle of building a 100% all carbon fiber 69 Camaros, which that's everything, interior, base, structure, everything. And then C3s. So I'm in the middle of getting ready. I'm doing C3s as well. And
virtual.
We don't even have the car here, right? So everything's going to be created from a three-dimensional space on these things. So I see a lot more of that happening. I see a lot more of people building their brand of car and more marketing their brand of car to sell per se, versus a customer coming in and saying, this is what I want to build.
Right.
I think for us, it's sitting down with those people and figuring out their expectations and really guiding them a direction. And that's what I've seen change a lot and shift in our industry. Is a lot more people reaching out toward the technology side. A lot more people are developing their own parts and products for their builds because they know they work and function, versus opening up the catalog and just buying something and then trying to figure out how to make it work. Everybody's creating their own.
Sean, you agree, right? You're designing it first and then we build it next, correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of what's going to be next, though, is that what you're asking too?
Yeah, just a quick glimpse of what do you see going to? AI. Interesting.
I know that's the huge, scary buzzword right now, but in my AI program I use for car design, and I am using AI. I know a lot of designers shun against it like it's a bad thing, and if not used ethically, it can be. But also, I think designers get a little too emotionally attached to their artwork, and they want to be artists. And this is my drawing, and I'm an artist. But you got to understand, if you're a designer, the drawing's only used to communicate, to give to somebody like Jeremy or a shop or somebody. It's just a way to get my idea or the client's idea out of my head, out of their head, and into a thing where we can make it a tangible project and enjoy it, a product.
Right.
I have a feature in mind where I could do a 2D sketch, and it turns a 2D sketch into a rough 3D model. I just did a set of A-arms for Lopez Performance where I did a series of just blueprint sketches, and then I hit 3D and it turned it into a 3D model. I gave that to his modeler, his in-house engineer, and he modeled everything up in SolidWorks within a day. That literally eliminated a week or two of time. So I think people just need to be less emotional about the art aspect of it. And unfortunately, I was talking to Dave Merrick, the ex-design director of Honda, and he's like, if you deny AI at this point, it's the stupidest thing you can do. I don't necessarily like it, but it's here.
It's here. Jeremy, you agree?
Yeah, we're definitely on the AI bandwagon. The VR, we do some VR, trying to get into the VR stuff now. I think where the technology on our end going, the interior side, is definitely large scale 3D printing, like we do, and we source that out as well, and we do it some here in house still. But I think I think those large scale printers are going to come down in price, and it's going to allow more people to buy them. And I think the materials that they print in is going to become better as time goes along. There's going to be more carbon, and there's going to be stronger parts, and you're going to be able to print large scale in-use parts and make them as light as an OEM part today. I think that's definitely where the future is for us anyway, on the interior, but definitely driven by AI or driven by design.
Awesome. Listen, I know we could talk this all day long, and especially you three, but I hope everybody listening had a very inspirational this experience here, and that these guys are making it happen, and so can you. So if there's any questions, are we going to do a little Q&A here if we have time for that? And let's see if we have anything. And of course, these guys are HRA members, and they're there for your information too down the line. If you're at a show or you want to is that okay with you guys? If somebody wants to reach out eventually and have any questions?
Yeah, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be where we're at if it wasn't for that.
100% correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, amazing. Okay, so no questions right now, but it's probably just overwhelming. And this is a great topic. And again, I appreciate you guys for taking the time. And I'm going to turn it to Tim, and he's going to take us to the end.
Awesome. Hey, Zach, Sean, Jeremy, awesome panel discussion. Carl, well done in terms of moderating an incredible topic that we got a perspective from the upfront design. We got it from fabrication. We got it from interiors. We got a really full perspective of the merger of technology with the art of design, the art of fabrication, the craftsmanship of interior, the craftsmanship of manufacturing. It's awesome. Awesome. Thank you, the three of you guys, for participating.
No worries.
I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate one of our own who was recently announced as inducted into the SEMA Hall of Fame class of 2025. I would like to congratulate on behalf of the entire hot rod industry, John McLeod, in a well-deserved recognition. It's just awesome that we have another member of the hot rod community joining the SEMA Hall of Fame. So hats off to John and congratulations.
Absolutely.
Really, really cool.
Well deserved.
Nice.
With that, I will prepare to close the meeting if there's no other questions. And just an awesome session. Thank you all for participating and attending. And we hope to have you guys join us the next time. Come see us at any of the 4 events coming up this summer. It's a great community and we want to keep building it. Thank you all, and I'll close the open meeting.